Hello, everyone. Welcome to part two of the March edition of the WinUI Community Call. My name is Anna. I'm a PM on the WinUI team, and I host these monthly community calls for WinUI. So if you weren't at part one of the March stream, we had some technical issues and the stream cut out about 30 minutes early. So today we're just going to be doing that 30 minutes today. That second half is what we're going to be presenting today. There won't be any repeated content, but we'll be hearing from Uno, and there will be some time to get your questions in. So I just have a few quick slides. A little bit about the community call, just as a reminder. It takes place on the third Wednesday of every month. So the next call will be on April 21st. In the meantime, you can always keep up with us on GitHub and on Twitter. As I said, the agenda today, really simple. It'll be a shorter call, and we are welcoming Uno Platform. Finally, hopefully they can show us their awesome demos and really show us what Uno Platform can do. And then we will do some Q&A. So today I am welcoming Jerome and Francois from the Uno team, and I know they have a lot, so let's just get right into it. Francois, feel free to share your screen and let me know when you are ready.
Thanks, Anna. I should be sharing now.
All right. You look good. Let's go.
Thank you, Anna. Good day, everyone. I'm Francois Tanguay. I'm the cheerleader-in-chief for the Uno platform. Thanks for taking time and your busy schedules for part two. I'm here today basically to provide a recap for what we've been up to with the Uno platform and where we're going, and then I'll hand it over to Jerome for some cool demos. So why do we call it WinUI everywhere? The reason is basically that Uno is a platform that allows you to combine WinUI API with XAML and C# to build cross-platform native, pixel-perfect apps across desktop, web, and mobile. Right. So basically, almost everywhere where .NET runs today. And the way we're able to do that is that when we're running on the browser, we're running on top of WebAssembly and we're tapping into the HTML DOM. If we're running on iOS, we're running by leveraging the UI kit, and same thing across all different native platforms. Linux is somewhat special where we're using the Skia engine to run on Linux, and also allows you obviously to run on IoT, like smaller form factor devices. And just for clarity, this is not a web-based technology that gets wrapped into a desktop shell to run everywhere, nor is it a mobile-first strategy that gets stretched into desktop. We're really leveraging WinUI's root into universal apps and all the thinking that went along of like creating apps across a variety of form factors, from phones to laptop desktops and tablets, all the way to like touch-friendly larger devices like Surface Hubs, right? And we're using that, and we're bringing this across all the other platforms. By aligning with WinUI, it also enables us to leverage the rich third-party ecosystem available. So the Windows Community Toolkit, the Syncfusions and Infragistics of this world, and really allows you to, without having to reinvent the wheel, obviously. And finally, probably the most important, it's a free and open source platform that you can start using today. We, just for a bit of background, I know I've shared this previously, but like we started working internally at Inventive, our parent agency, on Uno in 2013. We open sourced it in 2018 when WebAssembly came out. And since then, and since the last time we met on a WinUI community call, the team has been busy. So we've aligned with WinUI 3. We've shipped support for Android 10 and Android X, added new backends with macOS and Linux. Started adding design themes with Material and Fluent UI support, updated our runtimes to .NET 5, added support for Android 11, brought in partners like Infragistics, as I mentioned before. And also we were capable of keeping the pace with our collaboration with Microsoft, and we were able to ship day zero support for WinUI 3 Preview 4. And we're not planning to stop there. So we have an upcoming release, our 3.6 release, for which we're planning to add day zero support for WinUI 3 Reunion 0.5. But we're also adding a bunch of other stuff, like date pickers that have been highly demanded, file pickers across all platforms that Martin has been working on, We're also adding a new design team as a foundation for you to build your apps on top of with Cupertino. We're adding enterprise-like features also with OpenID Connect through the web authentication broker. We're revamping documentation. That was one of the high notes in our previous surveys. Also adding Windows Community Toolkit 7 support that just shipped. And also we're basically leveraging all the work the VS team has been doing to make sure that Uno apps, because they're somewhat special with the shared project and being cross-platform, to make sure that all these fixes that they've made in 16.9 and 16.10 will be working fine with Uno moving forward, right? So you get it to have as a frictionless experience as possible. People also ask, so we came up with this new slide just to represent the sheer volume of all the controls from the UWP WinUI, and I know it's really not really visible, but it's all on our website. We're over 90% in terms of coverage of all the controls from UWP and WinUI that we're supporting. So you might not have some more edge cases like semantic zoom, for example, but everything you need on a daily basis should be there for you to build an app on top of. I've mentioned pixel perfect, and people sometimes struggle understanding like what does that actually mean. So we think there's a spectrum of options as to how you want to build your apps today and how you want them to render on a screen. At one end of the spectrum, there's platforms relying on native controls to render natively using their default looks. At the other end of the spectrum, you can have canvas-based, pixel-based rendering where you actually control every pixel in order to, as a platform, to render your controls. We believe with Uno, we have the best of both worlds, where we're using the native behaviors, the native controls and their inherent native behaviors, but we're optionally stripping all the Chrome and the visuals and separating the behaviors from the visuals of these controls. And by leveraging the rich WinUI styling engine with control templating, we're actually able to draw whatever you want to see in terms of your pixel perfect controls across all platforms while keeping your native behaviors. And that's really what allowed us to come up with some design themes and Fluent UI support, and then we've added obviously material support, and now we're showcasing a preview of Cupertino support, where you can decide whether you want to have the distinct looks on a per platform basis, or you want to use these design themes as a base for your own app look and feel to be based on and look the same and be pixel perfect across all platforms. So that should give you a starting point for you to build your app. Because we're controlling every single pixel, we're also enabling a rich animation engine by using everything WinUI has to offer. So you can create your own storyboards and transitions and animations, or you can also leverage, obviously, the Lottie kind of engine for you to be able to run those richer and more niche animations across all the platforms that you care about. People often ask us also, like, how are we keeping up? How can we undertake this massive investment of recreating WinUI across all platforms? And the truth is we're not. Right? Through the partnership we have with Microsoft, we're able to leverage all of the source code that they've built. And this is an example, the date picker, where we've actually reused over 11,000 lines of C++ code with many edge cases, and we ported it over to Uno for them to work across all the platforms that we're targeting. So it's a single code base, and we were able to get that same experience. So this, on a browser today, you'd be able to run that native date picker in a browser, and it would behave the same. So that means that, yes, if WinUI somehow had a bug in a date picker, we'd have the same bug in Uno. But it also means that you have access to the same shared documentation, to the same test coverage underneath, to the same third-party ecosystem that's building on top of these controls, and you're getting exactly the same experience across all devices beyond just the Windows desktop platform. And that's really how we've been able to do it, and I think Jerome will show it in action. Enough talk. I think it's time for cool demos with Jerome.
Yes, so let me share my screen now. So we should be good.
Yep, we can see it.
Excellent. So, as a small reminder, the Uno platform is about a default template that you can create when going to start your application, and you can find it using the Manage Extensions Uno platform solution template. So you search for Uno, you're going to get that. And once you get this, you get to create a new project. Here, when searching for Uno, you get two sets of templates. One is for the cross-platform app, and the other one is for the cross-platform library. So if you want to reuse your controls, you can do it that way very nicely. So to save us some time, I created the application already. And what you get there is an application that has two sides. The first one is the shared code here that you can find when the project is created. So you get a main page and app.xaml, which looks like a default application that you would get when creating a UWP or a WinUI application. And then you get all the heads for Android, iOS, macOS, Kia, GTK, Tizen, even some WPF. So that one is a bit is to go for Windows 7, for instance, or Windows 8. And then WebAssembly. And all this allows you to get your application running there. So when you get to develop an application using Uno, you can start with a UWP, because on UWP we're not there, and Uno is about implementing the WinUI contract on other platforms. So if I start this application, I have a number box and an info bar control here. I just built that small application to show off a small set of features that are available there. So this is the info bar control, and so I basically mapped the severity of that control over to the number box. So if I change the numbers here, I can get the binding here updating by the map severity function that I've put in the code behind. So that's one of the things that we can do. So one of the interesting thing that comes with using WinUI, directly from Visual Studio is the hot reload feature that is available, out of the box from WinUI, and then that means that I can add, let's say, for instance, a margin here, and that code updates right away, and I'm going to get something that is updated immediately. So I'm using 16.9. All those queries are going to go away in 16.10, just so you know. So now what I can do is I can once I have my application running there, I can go to WebAssembly, for instance. So if I go to WebAssembly here, and I just build my application, building an application on top of WebAssembly is about creating a small website with index HTML and all sorts of WebAssembly features that are baked inside of the application, and then you get something like this. So this is pretty much the same info bar control, and you can do things like this. Like, for instance, you can do +1 plus, do expressions like that, and you get your application, your number box updated. So this is the real number box control, and François was showing the numbers for code reuse for the datetime picker. But it's the same for the number box. This is the actual number box that comes from WinUI. So we have not reinvented anything. It's behaving exactly the same way. And if you want to have your expression available there, it's going to be working the same way. So another thing that we can do is just do the same thing and go over to iOS, for instance. So if I just select my application here and run on the simulator, so it's a bit small because of my screen, but you can see here that it's connected to my Mac. If I build the same application and run it on iOS, then it's going to do the same kind of updates there. So if I let the build finish a little bit, then you're going to get the same application running inside of that simulator, and which is going to be showing the same things. There it is. That's my application running with the same info bar available there, with the same kind of features available across platforms. So that's one of the things that we can do with updating your application. Now, what I want to show you is the date picker that François was talking about, and that one is quite interesting because it really is the behavior that we had for this one. And the interesting thing is that, well, yes, we could have rewritten that one a little bit, but it's a very complex control. And having taken a look at what's happening in that control, handling the Japanese calendar is not one of the simplest things, or the small things about other types of calendars that are available. All that knowledge and hours spent by the Microsoft teams to get the perfect control working there. It's all available to Uno users. So I can just select another date, and that's going to happen to be there as well. So that's one of the things that's available with using Uno for that specific control. And you get the same thing about selecting controls. You get even the wheel that's available. All those behaviors are available as part of the WinUI control, and we've ported that over by using the exact same code on multiple platforms. So there you go. So that's one of the controls that we are adding for 3.6. Now another one that's been of a lot of importance for desktop users is the tree view control, and that's one of the controls that is very interesting. You can data bind it. It's coming from the WinUI. I think it was added into WinUI 2.3, but it's available. Same thing. So the same control is there. You can have things like I think it's selection mode. I think you can have multiple selections. So if you update, then you get things like that. So and you can data bind it. That's one of the things that was missing in the previous versions of that control. Now, another thing that we can do is, and I forgot about that. I will also support drag and drop. So if you move the items around, then it's going to behave properly, and your items are going to move away. So it's just moving items inside of that control. So another thing that we can do is go over to another platform. So what I'm going to change is go to GTK. That one is actually an application running on Windows. So we're going to start running GTK is a cross-platform shell that we're using for the Uno platform to render itself in the Skia canvas. So what I'm going to change is here go to that project here. So when I start the application, it's starting off as a Windows application and running here inside of in Windows. So this is really a Windows application. You can see here that it's running in program files and using .NET that's available here, and it's having the same behavior with that application here. So one of the other controls that we've ported over from WinUI is the tab view control. So let me, I can just change that control and put it here, and so maybe I think I just changed something in the wrong way. Let me see. So it's updated here, but not here. Let me try it again. So that's the tab view control. So it's the tab view, the same tab view that you will see when running in the what's that called again? The new terminal, that Windows terminal. So that's the same control that's used there with the ability to add items, have right clicks, move tabs around, and things like that. That's available on all platforms, and it's also available on iOS. Since I changed that same file, it's available on all platforms. So that's one of the cool things there. But I want to show you something that's even more interesting there. So you can see here that I have something that's called X. It's an X server, so it's something that allows to run Linux applications on using WSL, but show their UI on top of on Windows directly. So what I'm going to do here is change here from the Demo01 Skia GTK to WSL2. And what happens then is that the application is actually going to start running in my WSL. So what I can do is what I want to show you and show you that I'm not lying, that it actually is running there. When I press F5, what happens then is I can put a breakpoint there in the application, but you can see here that it's actually running from user share, .NET shared, and it's all Linux paths. And that's pretty cool because it means that you're going to be able to test your application running really on Linux, not on something else. And if I let the application run forward, you will see that the window is going to show up. And then this is really the same application, but this time running on Linux. So this is an X11 rendering engine that's underneath. It behaves the same way that an application would run there. So that's one of the things that we've used to get the application, the Uno calculator, running on other platforms. For instance, if you haven't seen that one, it's an application that we've ported over to the other platforms, and that's one that's running across platforms on Raspberry Pis, for instance, we're talking about IoT. That's another one that's there. So the same kind of porting, we ported over some C++ and C# code over to Uno, and it's running there in your browser or on your devices or iPad or whatnot. So that's the kind of cool things that we get there. Now, if we go back to the sample, another things that we've added support for that's coming from the Windows Community Toolkit is the data grid control. So what I can do is just paste over a small piece of code that uses some code that's in the code behind. And if I run the application again, you will see that application is actually now showing the data grid running in WSL on Linux. And that's a control that was developed originally for Silverlight. So it's kind of quite a long way from its origins. So that's pretty cool to see that control running across platforms that way. Another control that we do support from the Community Toolkit, and we actually support quite a few of those from the Windows Community Toolkit 7, is the range selector control. So that control allows you to get two sliders and to select a range of controls that are a range of values that are available there. So there's quite a few things that have been added in Windows Community Toolkit 7. And one of the things that we added support for is items repeater layouts that have been included in the Windows Community Toolkit. So that's also something that we ported over from WinUI for the items repeater, and now available through custom layouts coming from the Windows Community Toolkit. So that's a few samples of the controls that we've been porting over, and that you're able to reuse when developing an application from using Uno. On the other side of the spectrum, you have applications that have been developed by our partners, namely Syncfusion. You have a set of controls that are available and running in WebAssembly here, like axis, showing axes like that, or pie charts, or donut charts like that. So that's the kind of cool controls that the Syncfusion guys are able to provide, and the team has been pretty interested into looking at those controls. So that's the kind of controls that are available there. You can go and poke at their controls and see what they're doing for your apps. Another type of another set of samples that are from Infragistics. So that's another one. This is an application that runs in WebAssembly, and the interesting thing is that when I move my mouse here, you can see here that the graph below is showing up the color components of the image below. So if I select that, if I put my mouse on top of the green here, you can see that the green here is bigger than the others because I put my pointer on something bigger than on something green there. So that gives you an idea of what is possible with the ecosystems of controls that are available for Uno. The Infragistics guys have been creating cool new other controls, like one that was available from the webinar that we did, the joint webinar that we did, Uno Infragistics, for their own data grid, and it was a pretty cool demo that you can take a look at. So if you're interested in this, then you will find that on their website. So that's all for the demos. I can go back to the slides. Let me see. So that was all for the demos. Francois, do you want to take over? Or maybe I can continue that one. So we have a draw for people that have been watching this presentation. This is an introduction to the Uno platform on Udemy. So if you go to provide some feedback on this presentation on the URL below, that will be posted onto the YouTube chat, if I'm not mistaken, you can win one of the 5 prizes there are for this session.
Thanks, Jerome. So if you want to try Uno today, obviously you go to our website, platform.uno. There's getting started over there with tutorials. We're pretty active, and the team and the community is pretty active on Discord. On the Uno platform channel, there's the invite at platform.uno/discord. It's from the UWP community server. If you find issues, if there's issues left in Uno, you can report them on our GitHub. And there's also something special in some cases where an enterprise or a customer is interested in building an app with WinUI and also target Uno with other platforms with it. We've partnered with the App Consult team from Microsoft. So if you send us an email explaining the types of projects, there might be opportunities to collaborate together on these opportunities as well. That's it, Anna.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Let me get back to the PowerPoint here. Before we get into Q&A, I just want to really give a big thanks to the Uno team for sticking with it, doing that presentation kind of twice, first of all, but also showing us those really cool demos. I mean, every time I see an Uno demo, I'm like, wow, that is actually magical. So it's cool to know that there's actually like science behind it that makes it work. Really great stuff, guys. Excited to see, all the future stuff that keeps coming. But we can switch into Q&A now. So if everyone on our call wants to go ahead and put their video on and join in, and we can take some of your questions. I'll preface this by saying we have collected questions from the February call, last week's call, GitHub, and YouTube. This week's part 2 call, GitHub and YouTube. So just know we are tracking all of those questions as best as we can, and we're going to try and answer a wide range of them. We don't want to keep anybody, way over time just because this is a part 2 and we took up some of your time last week. So just as, to be respectful of everyone's time, we're going to be doing about 15 or 20 minutes of Q&A this time around. But it looks like the team is ready. So I am going to go ahead and switch over to our Q&A view and we can get started. Savoy?
Perfect. Thanks, Anna. And don't forget, I think you'll want to throw us into the theater mode so we can see everyone here.
Let me try and do that. All right. You can go ahead. I'm not sure. Everybody's face is on the screen. Let's just we can leave it like
Yeah,
this.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got the right amount here, so I think we fit.
Can never tell what team's layout we're going to have.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a lot of questions on this topic, so I'm actually going to start with a question that will be kind of a group question to both the WinUI side and the Uno side. So Ryan and Uno team, I'll tag you all in for this. We had several viewers ask, why would one choose to use Uno and WinUI over Maui if Maui is expected to be part of .NET 6? What are Uno and WinUI's benefits? Actually, that's pretty much the gist of the question. So why Uno and WinUI over Maui? What are the benefits? And Ryan, we'll start with you, and we can hand it off to Francois and team when you're ready.
That's perfect, Savoy. That's exactly how I do it. So I think first it's important to understand maybe the fundamental difference between frameworks like Uno or Maui and WinUI. So WinUI really is the native stack UX stack for Windows 10. The idea of it is really to provide the best, sort of closest to the metal, sort of official, you might say, UX stack to go and build a modern and really exciting Windows app. So if you're using WinUI, you're really using sort of a best-in-class thing. And our goal, even at Microsoft, is to have our own apps use that. And in fact, we have dozens of inbox apps that ship with Windows 10 that use WinUI 2. And so WinUI 3, as it becomes available and continues to mature, some of those apps will also switch over to using WinUI 3 as well. But the goal is to really put forward the best thing that we can. It's really targeted at Windows, though. And it's not a cross-platform solution. It's not likely to be a cross-platform solution anytime in the even remotely near future. And so what that means is there's a lot of developers interested in cross-platform development, and we see ourselves as not really playing in that space on the WinUI level, but rather providing the basis for any cross-platform framework that wants to reach Windows, and most of them do want to reach Windows because there's a billion sockets there. So I think of frameworks like Uno and Maui and others as sort of sitting at a higher level. They sort of operate in this cross-platform level, and then when they're running on a Windows machine, then of course they should be targeting the native UX platform for that machine. And in the Windows case, it's WinUI. That's the best in breed one that we can have. And there are plans, as you've seen today, and really for a long time, for Uno to go and graft on WinUI, and then also Maui has those plans as well. And so, to maybe superficially answer your question, if you want to write sort of as closely to the metal and just make a Windows app, WinUI is a great option. And we support .NET, we support C++. That is a good way to go and do it. If you have like a cross-platform ambition, or you just feel more comfortable with the languages and sort of the tooling story around something like Uno or Maui, that's a great way to do it too. And what you end up with is you're going to be making a WinUI app anyway, because both UI and Maui and Uno will ultimately result in a WinUI app when that app is running on Windows. So that's hopefully gives you a bit of education on just like how we think about the difference in those layers. But Francois, please add any additional thing that you want to say about Uno.
Thanks, Ryan. No, I think you've nailed it. The way we look at it, because obviously we get asked every single day that question. I think there's really three primary reasons why people care about Uno and how we've been able to grow a community. First, it's available today, right? We've been at it for a while, so that's something you can start using today. The second probably difference is in the target platforms that we have. So if you care about a web with WebAssembly or care about Linux, that's something you can target today as well with Uno compared to some of the other offerings out there. And the third, I think, and it goes back to my point about aligning with WinUI, it has its deep roots in desktop, right? So if you care about targeting other desktop-enabled platforms, and you care about all the controls and the richness of the ecosystem, Jerome showed the tab view, data grid, tree views, menus, context menus, keyboard support with focus management, and all that. Like if you care about these concepts, those are being brought over from the WinUI and the Windows Community Toolkit and the rich ecosystem to all platforms, and that's not necessarily something that you have readily available in some of the other cross-platform offerings if they were a mobile-first kind of platform. So I think it probably completes what Ryan said.
Awesome. Thanks a ton. All right. The next question I'll grab here is one I'll actually toss to Anna. Anna, Christoph is asking, what's the border between the reunion? And actually, we also have Andrew Klinick here as well. So let me give a shout out real quick and say, for anyone who tuned in last week, we had an awesome presentation on Project Reunion from Andrew Klinick. So be sure to ask questions to Andrew and about Project Reunion in chat. And this is one of them. So I'll hand this to Andrew and Anna. Christoph is asking, what's the border between Reunion and WinUI GitHub repos? I can't choose. Should I contribute to WinUI XAML repo or to Project Reunion's repo for C/C++ Windows contribution stuff?
Andrew, do you want to take that one, or should I take that one?
You're muted, Andrew.
Good call.
Wouldn't be a Teams call if somebody wasn't muted. So, it's a great question, and I don't think there's necessarily a simple answer. I think it really, well, maybe is a simple answer. It depends what you're wanting to contribute. If you're contributing issues, then I think if you can put it in either place, and obviously we will make sure that it gets to the right people. So I would really encourage people to just contribute issues and worry a little bit less exactly if you've got it in the right place, and we can work that out. And then obviously in code and where you're tracking, I mean, I can speak from a Reunion perspective. For non-WinUI stuff, we're doing a lot of that in the open right now in GitHub in terms of code, and you'll see more of that. And I think somebody answered it in the YouTube chat about WinUI eventually. So we're looking to integrate on that. So that's from a Reunion perspective. But Anna, if you've got some more insight into what you should do from a WinUI perspective.
Yeah, I just think WinUI specific issues, like if you're using a WinUI control and you say this isn't rendering right, or this isn't working how I want it to, or even I want a control within WinUI that does this. I think that's WinUI specific feedback that can be posted on the WinUI repo. If you have really big ideas, about like app lifecycle and how the app deployment process should work, just kind of stuff that's on a higher level, I guess, than the UI portion that's involved in WinUI, definitely go on the Project Reunion repo. And honestly, as long as you post on one of the two repos, we're going to be able to direct you to the right one at the end of the day. If you've posted on the wrong one, we'll just say, hey, maybe you should post this on the WinUI, or maybe you should post this on the Reunion repo. So as long as you post it, we will see it, and we value all that feedback.
All right. Uno team, another question for you. Keithernet is asking, has the Uno team thought about rendering to Skia on every platform?
You want to take this, Jerome?
Yes, I can. So yes, we've thought of that. We've thought of that, and there are multiple ways to think about this, and it all boils down to what kind of scenarios you're targeting. So let's say if you're interested into getting full access to accessibility or following what the UI is able to provide, or anything that goes with IME. So let's say if you right click on or long tap on something like a text box, redoing all this using Skia may be a problem. So that's why we keep both way for rendering UI. So on iOS and Android and macOS and eventually Catalyst, we're going to be continuing to render controls that way and provide a way for people to follow what the system is able to provide. And even in some cases, apps cannot do what the system is able to do. So it can get very difficult to be able to reproduce those behaviors. Now, in other cases, like if you're doing an industrial kind of machine, or if you're doing things like, let's say, a small application that doesn't need to have accessibility concerns or doesn't need to have very high level text entry or things like that, that may be something that is of good interest. Other things like very deep access to OpenGL and other types of features provided by the system with regards to animations and drawing may be something that could be of very good interest. So yes, we're taking a look at that. It's not in the immediate future, but it's something that if you have scenarios for it, just let us know by opening an issue on our repo.
Excellent. Back to the WinUI side, Ryan, we have a question for you from GitHub. Jean is asking, I have a question regarding the controls that are now emitted in WinUI 3. I found Pivot to be indispensable for apps that are strongly designed for touch devices, gesture navigation. These controls, will the source code for these still be published, and can the community choose to maintain these controls even though the WinUI team won't maintain them? We'll stop the question there. There's a lot on this topic.
Yeah, definitely Pivot's been a hot topic. I saw also that Thomas May was asking about how we can have nested tab experiences. So he's sort of asking about Pivot as well. So let me address the Pivot thing for a second. First of all, I think that, and we covered this in the chat on the last call that then got interrupted. But I think on the Pivot issue, we didn't really do our diligence to sort of give people a heads up on that. So the first thing I want to do is just acknowledge that. I think that was a learning moment for us and our team. We need to really have a little bit more heads up there. And I want to make that really clear that we've taken that as vital feedback for us internally. I think a lot of us, we have data on usage of Pivot. It is very low. And so we sort of took for granted that okay, we can probably go and remove it. And probably it's not going to be a big deal for folks. But I think what we missed in that evaluation was, even though the usage we know is really low, the message that sends around making decisions without really giving people a heads up, I think was a really well received message. So we will we'll definitely adapt our processes there, try and give much more heads up and much more discussion down the road. In terms of what we're going to do in the Pivot space, we are it's unlikely that we'll bring back Pivot. We removed Pivot for a reason, and that is that we want to make sure that every control that we have and support we really need to make sure that it always reflects the latest Fluent design and sort of the best in breed of how a Windows app should look, because that's really our mission for WinUI, is to make the best native apps. So we are going to be addressing this through either the addition of additional controls or some guidance that we put out about how to achieve those nested tab type scenarios and how to get a pivot-like experience. So we'll have more information coming on that later.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. Uno team, back to you. We have a question here asking if there's any plan to do something about VS Code support and the difficulty developing Uno using Linux.
Yes, so clearly in the plans for VS Code, there's a couple of things that need to happen for us to get there. First, we need to be able to bootstrap some of our existing tooling, like Hot Reload on the XAML side of it. And then obviously there's no knowledge from a VS Code standpoint about XAML itself, right? So it would mean for us to build or to leverage a XAML language server for it to work properly and get like syntax highlighting and tile sense and all that. So clearly something that the community has demanded quite a bit, something we understand and are looking at. No commitments yet in terms of release and milestones, but we're closely paying attention, and that would allow you to run or build Uno apps across all different operating systems for sure. So totally get it.
Excellent. And Uno team, we'll stay with you for a minute. We have more viewers asking, are you able to clarify your pixel perfect statement some more? What are lookless controls?
Jerome, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So when we're talking about pixel perfect, it's all about making sure that you have the same visual across platforms. So there's one way of saying some designers want to have the native look and feel on every platform, so you can use the native controls directly, and it will be the exact same control. There will be different controls on every platform, but there's also a way to get the same look and feel everywhere. So it can be the let's say out-of-the-box way of showing controls with Fluent style. So let's say if you have a button, that button may have any kind of look. So if you don't set it a style, then it will just show nothing. And then you can add a template onto it. Let's say that button could be a rectangle with a background and then a video inside, or a Lottie animation inside if you want to make a waiting button or something like that. So that's when we were saying lookless controls, we're saying a control defines its behavior, but not the way it should be displayed. That's the styling that does that way of showing that control. And the thing is that because we're supporting all the styling and theming that's provided by WinUI, then that means that control that you've defined once on Windows or on Windows then can be reused as is, and will look the same on all the other platforms, including the ones that are drawing using Skia. So it really will look the same. But that's up to you. It's something that you can change per control. There's not just one size fit all. It can be the same control everywhere. It can be one control on one platform, another style of control on the other platform, or it can be a mix of all the styles in the same app if you want. That's something that you can definitely do.
All right, and I'll throw it out there again that we do have Andrew Klinick from Project Reunion with us, and we don't have very many Reunion questions so far. I'd love to see a few, so if anyone has some to ask, please throw them in chat. Otherwise, back to the WinUI side. Mike, I have a question for you from Martin, who's asking, does WinUI 3 use a dwrite core for its text rendering by default, or is it something you opt into with Project Reunion?
When you're at 3, so there's dwrite that's in the system that XAML's been using for a long time. There's dwrite core, which is a version of that is in Reunion, along with WinUI. But in the implementation of WinUI, we're still using the dwrite that's in the system. So it's not something that you can configure or change. We're just using what's in the system currently.
Perfect. And back to the Uno side. Uno team, we have viewers asking, given that Uno is open source, how do you know you will be there in 3 years' time? How do you sustain your projects?
That's a good question. So we've been at it for 8 years already, obviously, and Uno has been backed by our parent service agency, Inventive, and that's how we've been able primarily to sustain it in the past. But we're getting traction on the enterprise. So we have paid enterprise support for customers that are committing to the platform and want to have like more hands-on support with them, and that's how we've been able to support it, and how we will be able to support it moving forward. But honestly, the fact that the WinUI team is doing most of the work, basically, it really helps us make sure that we're able to leverage all the work that's being done and make it a successful platform.
Awesome. And let me grab a question for Miguel here. Miguel, let's take a look at this one from Eleanor that comes from the last call. There have been a couple issues opened recently for title bar. WinUI 3 Preview 4 added these properties and methods around extends content into title bar and set title bar to allow customizing the title bar. In our UWP apps, we use the application view.titlebar API to set the title bar button colors to match the title bar. Will there be equivalent methods in upcoming WinUI 3 releases?
Actually, yes, this is a very good question. Yeah, actually, we have you can today changing the main button, max button colors using the templates that we have in the something called Windows Chrome. The thing is, we didn't document this part yet, but you can change the style of the title bar today in WinUI 3 desktop. However, it's not exactly the same way that you can do it in UWP. In UWP, you have several specific properties, but today with the Reunion 0.5, you can do that. About the future, we are going to invest in the custom title bar for sure, and we are going to make sure that all the things that you can do it in UWP will be able to use in will be able to do as well in WinUI. But yep, for sure. So you have these two new properties. You can change the style to change the color, the background, the size of the title bar. Actually, I will make sure that you have some samples. So I will document a sample today. I will put in the GitHub site so you can know how to do that.
Excellent. So I'll take it back to Uno for a moment here. Uno team, Sejia is asking, will WinUI be on Android and iOS via Uno platform?
Jerome?
Yeah, sure. So yes, it's actually already is available on iOS, Android, and the other platforms. There was actually a cool demo that was available about a calculator that's running on WinUI directly and using the two-pane view on the Surface Duo. So yeah, it's definitely available currently. When you want to use this, there's a set of templates that are available through .NET New. So if you type .NET New Uno app-WinUI, then you're going to get a new template that uses WinUI and that you can align with your WinUI or Project Reunion applications that you will be developing.
Awesome. And so another question for you. Someone is asking, is Uno XAML based only, or is there a path for reusing HTML and CSS assets from PWA's Electron and Web? If the path involves using WebView 2, how seamless will it be on the rest of the UX?
So there's actually two questions. So the first one is, can you reuse HTML? The answer is yes. There's a way to embed any kind of HTML and JavaScript. We actually have customers that have been using some controls that do PDF viewing that are available as JavaScript controls. So it's definitely something that's possible to do and encouraged to do because of the richness of the JavaScript ecosystem. And on the other side, there's the WebView 2. So having a web view instead of a browser kind of feels odd. And most of the scenarios that we've seen is about integrating JavaScript controls. So because interacting with those controls is fairly easy to do, there's really not that much need for doing the integration of WebView 2. If you want to do that, you can use in the same technique integrated with an iframe that works pretty well as well. But there are security concerns that are browsers are pretty much locked down in many ways. So it's not as easy as it would be when running a WebView 2 instead of a WinUI applications, for instance.
Excellent. All right. And as Ryan's saying in the chat here, our viewership's still going up and we've got a ton of great questions. So it looks like we'll keep going here for a few more minutes just to get some of these awesome questions asked live. So Uno, I'll bother you for one more and then throw it back to the WinUI team for a while. Let's take a look at this one. Jeremy is asking, does Uno support Linux ARM64?
Yes, it does. You can definitely go to the Snap Store and download the Windows calculator running on your Raspberry Pi. If it's running there, it can be on Ubuntu or it can be running on Raspbian. But you can definitely take. Actually, so Uno runs pretty much anywhere .NET runs. So if there's an additional target that may happen in the future, it will be available there as well.
Excellent. All right, so let's see. There's just a ton of good questions to choose from. All right, let's give this one to Ryan for a moment. Ryan, what is the migration path we recommend for WPF developers?
Good question. So that'll change over time. The first thing I want to state maybe is that certainly migration is not required. WPF will be continued to be supported. We expect new WPF apps to be created as well for people who like what they get with WPF or just feel comfortable with the technology. So there should be no pressure to move. But if you do want to go and replace your WPF UI with something like WinUI, you'll be able to do that. The way that looks right now is you'll download sort of the V6 as a part of Project Reunion. You'll go and create a new WinUI 3 app with File New Project in Visual Studio. And then you can copy your business logic over and begin to write new UX in WinUI 3 for that. Later on, hopefully this year, we're still planning out our release coming later this fall. But hopefully in that time frame, we'll have XAML Islands. And then XAML Islands, what that will allow you to do is to sort of do this piecemeal. So rather than having to kind of create a new app and build your WinUI from scratch, you'll be able to sort of retain your existing WPF UI. This will work for WinForms too, or MFC. And be able to put islands of that are HWin-backed regions of content, so that you can replace either individual screens or even parts of a window with WinUI 3 and migrate that over time. So that's what the story will look like.
And while I have you here, Ryan, Oleg is asking, and this is kind of a two-part question. In the case of old UWP apps with WinUI 2, when will it be safe to upgrade the NuGet package to WinUI 3, or will it be possible at all? And for new UWP apps, when will it be safe to start using the new project template?
Great. Those are two good questions. And I'll also have Mike Hilberg jump in case I miss anything here. But first of all, it's not going to be the case that you just sort of take the existing WinUI 2 NuGet package and then that same NuGet package just magically gives you WinUI 3. You'll need to use the V6 and the NuGet and the sort of the tools that are provided with Reunion. WinUI 3 is really like a separate framework. So just to make sure that that's clear, you're going to be using something that's different, and differently decoupled from the OS. And in terms of when you'll be able to move from WinUI 2 to 3, that's very situationally dependent. So WinUI 3 has, I would say, most of the controls that WinUI 2 has, but is missing some underlying things. Like, for example, WinUI 3 doesn't have a media stack right now. There's a number of features that are still there that we'll be adding over time through successive releases. So WinUI 3 is maturing and growing, both in trying to reach WinUI 2 parity, but then also even adding some things that WinUI 2 doesn't have, like WebView 2. So it really is sort of a separate thing. And so some people can move today, and other people will probably have to wait until our fall release, and some may even have to wait a little bit beyond that. We're trying to make it, close that gap so that eventually you'll just be able to, confidently move from WinUI 2 to 3. And our roadmap shows the features that they're coming on successfully. Then there's a second part of the question that I've now unfortunately forgotten.
I think it was about when can new UWP projects safely use a template?
Oh yeah, they're great. So we don't have a time frame for that right now. You will see that you can create a WinUI 3 app that is also a UWP app, and that's in preview. We have a lot of issues that we have actually intentionally not fixed for Reunion 0.5 because we've really been focusing on that sort of Win32 side. So after that's done, we'll start to switch back over to figuring out sort of the roadmap for UWP. So I don't really have anything extra to share, and I don't know the time frame at this time.
All right, Uno team. The promise that Uno runs on all platforms where .NET runs. Does this mean PlayStation, Tizen, and WebOS as well?
So Tizen, it is available already, but for WebOS and which one that was, the WebOS and the PlayStation. I mean, no one's asked already, but yeah, if there's a demand for that, we may take a look at it at some point. Yeah.
Excellent, Anna. A question for you. Just had it here. Oh man, now I lost it. It was specifically on WebView 2. That much I remember. Sure. Can you tell us about the plans coming up for WebView 2 and what its future is going to look like, at least in the near future here?
Right. So WebView 2 ships with WinUI 3. When we ship Project Reunion 0.5 and WinUI 3 is ready for production apps, you can also use WebView 2 in your production apps if it's a desktop app, as Ryan said. UWP support in WinUI 3 will still be in preview. But in the future, we are looking at getting WebView 2 onto more app types, kind of more of a, just if you have a UWP app and you want to use WinUI 3 with WebView 2, we want you to do that as well. We're trying to make it happen. Along with that, I know that a common issue with the user experience of WebView 2 is that the user using your app has to have the WebView 2 runtime installed on their machine. So just know that we hear that issue. I'm looking into it, and we're speaking with the Edge team. We're really trying to come up with some ways to make sure that we get that WebView 2 runtime installed on all the machines that it needs to be installed on, to make sure that when your user uses your app that has WebView 2 in it, it just works. That's obviously the ideal experience, and we're aware of that issue, and we're working towards a solution for it.
Excellent. So a question for Mike here, and this may include a few others as well. As WinUI 3 includes bugs for functionality that works correctly in UWP, does this mean that you started again from scratch when writing code for WinUI 3, or did you start by copying and referencing the existing UWP code? Please, can you talk about the process and what was done to avoid issues where WinUI 3 doesn't do things or handle edge cases that worked in UWP?
WinUI 3's got a few layers to it. So there's the XAML layer, and then XAML sitting on top of composition and input. Everything is working off of the same code that's been in Windows. So we didn't start from scratch. We pulled the existing code. The big part of the process for XAML has been to pull everything out of the Windows repo, put it into its own repo so that it can run independently in Windows and run down level and getting it ready for open source. For composition and input, there's additional challenges. System composition runs in the DWM process as a system process. The composition in the WinUI 3 app is running in-app compositor, and so there are some differences in capabilities there. Input runs in system services and the kernel, and some of that code is now running in-app in the app process. So there's some functional differences there. We've done a lot of work to expand from UWP to also include desktop. And there are some differences when you're running in desktop, which might be causing some of the problems of things that work correctly in UWP and don't work correctly today in WinUI 3 because you've moved from UWP app to a desktop app. And there's also been just some regressions. The last preview we put out works on up level in UWP apps, but we have a bug where it wasn't working in RS5, I think. So just in the process of porting, we've created some bugs, but it's all working off of the, the starting point is all the same code that's in Windows today.
Awesome. All right, and we're getting close to the end of the hour here, so we should wrap it up. I'll close on a question for our friends at Uno. Uno team, will UnoConf happen this year?
Yes, so clearly something's going to happen. So we'll at least have a virtual UnoConf like we had last year. we still have our fingers crossed as to whether or not it'll be possible late fall to have something like we had 2 years ago in Montreal. But for sure, we'll have something digital and virtual.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll be excited to see it. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Anna. I want to say thank you to the UNO team for joining us for questions today, as well as Andrew Klinick, who unfortunately could not stay till the end of the hour since we kind of extended this by surprise. So for those of you with reunion questions, I've captured them here. We'll send them Andrew's way. But I know Andrew is active on Twitter as well as on the Project Reunion GitHub repo, so feel encouraged to take the discussions there as well. And file those as discussion issues. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Anna, and she can close out the call for us.
All right. Thanks, Savoy. Thanks, everyone on our team, the UNO team, for sticking around and answering questions. Thanks to all of you who are here and maybe who even watched the last call. Just thanks for sticking with us. Really appreciate that. And I hope everybody got some good questions answered, got some clarity on some important things. We will be back on April 21st. So thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.